then the clock starts now. Thank you, Okono, for such a wonderful speech. Thank you, Judge, for being here. My name is Ephraim Mensah, and I'm next on the topic, in the midst of difficulty lies opportunity. Judge, to start, I would like to make this statement that the earth has the burden of proof, just like he said, to make sure that more often than not, in every difficulty lies opportunity. He has to prove that more often than not. With my contentions, I'm going to explain why that is not the case. So, first and foremost, he started with his story. He made mention that he had the opportunity to be interviewed for a job and decide whether, and also decide whether he was going to control the round. So he had decided to forfeit the round. But Judge, my question is that if you look at these two situations, you realize that the opportunity for the job did not come because he was in a debate room. If he was at home today, or maybe at the beach today, they would have eventually emailed him that, hey, let's do an interview. So the difficulty of forfeiting the debate round didn't necessarily lead to the opportunity. If we're at a party, we'll still have received the email that, look, there's an interview for you at maybe 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, kindly join. His difficulty didn't lead to the opportunity. So by his own words, it's not true. And that brings me to my first contention of burden of proof. My opponent has to prove that more often than not. He doesn't have to prove that just a correlation. The fact that I lost my job doesn't mean I'll find a new job. A lot of people lose their jobs. People are sacked from their jobs. In fact, big corporations who are worth billions of dollars lay people off. What do some people end up doing? Not getting jobs, end up in poverty. It's not just saying that, oh, because I lost my job, I'm going to start a business. In fact, I have a statistic that shows that 73% of businesses tend to fail. That's from Oxford.com. 73% of businesses, more than half. I'm sure we've seen people who have had this amazing business idea, who were so enthusiastic and so passionate, and started a business only to have the business fail. In fact, some of them may even quit or maybe sack from the business like, no, I have an idea, I'm going to put it to work. When Facebook started, I'm sure a lot of people, a lot of children were like, I'm going to build the next Facebook. But how many people have been able to actually build such a website or such a business to that level? Everyone can make coffee, but can everyone build a business at a Starbucks? No. The fact that you start from Starbucks doesn't mean you have the opportunity to start a business. And doesn't even mean that your business will succeed. Bring me to my second contention of difficulty is often a cycle. Let's take this scenario. A child born to parents who are poor, uneducated, who happen to live in an area that's full of crime and doesn't have enough schools. What opportunity exists for that child? Your parents are uneducated. I was fortunate that my parents were educated. They didn't go to tertiary school or high school, but they were educated enough to teach me the basics. That made me very good in math. I was fortunate. If someone was born to such a family who didn't have parents who were educated, you don't have good schools in your area, there's high crime in your area, what are the opportunities that exist for you? Are you going to say that because you are born in such such a difficulty, someone born in a rich home will have the same opportunities as you? Definitely not. If we say that we're lying to ourselves, such opportunities doesn't exist for you. What are you going to say? That you work hard, get out of that environment. Sure, you can work hard. But when you get to the age of 26 and start basic school at the age of 26, by then you would have had children and made bad life decisions. Why? You lack education and you lack advices. What my opponent is trying to say that everyone who's having difficulty has an opportunity. Not that. That doesn't exist for majority of the case. My third contention is not everyone gets an opportunity. Not everyone gets an opportunity. As I've mentioned earlier, some people lose their jobs and they're forced to be hired by other companies. Some immigrants lose their jobs and unfortunately they can't be hired by other companies. Hence, their H-1B visas cannot be prolonged or approved. You have to go back to your country. Would you say that's an opportunity? Would you say that's an opportunity? Of course not. My opponent is trying to assume that everyone has an opportunity, but that's not the case. More often than not everyone gets that golden opportunity. In fact, there was a study done by the HarvardNews.com that showed that they made a fake profile of an individual with a fake identity and gave the individual low net worth and high net worth from $1,000 to $100,000 and $10 million. What they noticed was that whenever the net worth of the person was above $100,000, that person was given more opportunities. But how many people can actually say you have a net of more than $100,000? No one, not everyone can say that. Opponent talks about the issue of what? Mental health and depression. That sickness, with regards to sickness. You can't tell someone who's in a state of depression or suicidal that being suicidal is an opportunity to get excited. No. That's not the right thing to say to such an individual. I'm suicidal. You're telling me that's an opportunity to get excited, to get out of it? No. Bring a solution. Provide answers to the problem I'm facing. That is the better solution. Don't tell me it's an opportunity to get out of the depression state I am in. At this point, I'd like to address my opponent's point. His first contention was civil rights. But with regard to civil rights, that what people had the opportunity to speak up. I will say that the opportunity to speak up existed when the whole civil rights, before the civil rights event started, in the times of slavery, when people were being maltreated, the opportunity existed. What we realized that the people who came to speak up were educated. People were educated of maybe a particular color, went to school, got educated, came back and spoke up because they had the opportunity to be educated and speak for their own people. The second point, the status quo, and I've proved that from the status quo that what losing a job doesn't necessarily lead towards starting business. And also talk about the issue of health challenges, that having a mental health disorder, a health challenge, doesn't necessarily mean have an opportunity to what get out of it or get out of this depression state. Thank you.
Are you ready for class examination?
Oh, sorry. Yes, for sex.
All right. Judge, are you ready?
Yes.
All right. 2 minutes starting now.
Yes.
Can you agree with the talk case that I provided today? In sense of the weighing mechanism and the definitions that I've provided?
I agree with the definitions you provided.
Okay.
I do agree with the definitions you provided. Yes.
Okay, can you tell me that your third contention tagline? Like, what is it actually?
So my third contention tagline is, not everyone gets an opportunity.
So can you expand upon that a little bit more? So you're saying that the less fortunate people are more prone to not get opportunities?
Yeah, and let me explain that. Using the same example that I gave earlier, born to uneducated parents who are poor, who live in a poor neighborhood, who don't have enough resources, not good schools. So what opportunity exists in that environment?
So if I come up here and tell you that both of my parents did not graduate high school, did not have a degree under their belt, but I'm currently attending a good university and I'm studying in honors, is
great,
that
because do your parents fall are your parents poor? No, of course not. To send you to college or even to get opportunity to educated, they should have finances.
So if I tell you that I'm on scholarship at this university, does that prone me to not have an opportunity to be better than?
So the question is, how do you get a scholarship? The foundation of education was laid because your parents had the finances. Someone decided to pay for the education you possess right now.
So I'll explain this upon more a little bit in my case, but I think those are all the questions I have.
Okay.
I have 3 minutes on my clock. Judge, are you ready?
Yes.
Can I put it?
Yeah.
3 minutes starting now. So since this is a really fast speech, I'm just quickly going to be going over my opponent's case and then going over what he said about my case. But I think I would just really like to recognize that my opponent had a limited amount of time and he kind of rushed over my case. And as a negation, my opponent has the burden of clash. He must come up here and provide a response and negate a lot of my contentions, which he kind of just grouped and talked about as a whole, which does not stand in today's debate round. But with that, let's talk a little bit about his case. His first being the burden of proof. I can agree with the fact that I have the burden to show you that more often than not, that the direct link between difficulty and opportunity occurs, and I think I've definitely done that with the 7 examples that go dropped by side negation. My opponent talks about how often this has actually happened. Do we see that people actually become successful after they lose their job, or do we see that people are actually building businesses after they lose their job? We obviously know, Judge, that not every single person is going to be successful when they do this, but do they have the opportunity to work and do it? That is a fact within this round. We see that if someone loses their job, they have the opportunity to find a new one. My opponent wants to put this Microsoft and basically talk about if an immigrant person loses their job, they can't get another one. They need to go back to their country and find a job there. This isn't a status quo example. This is a very nitpicky example that is actually occurring. My dad was an immigrant and he worked for a construction company, a local one. And once he got laid off of that job, what did he do, Judge? He built his own one. And this is an example that my opponent wants to make it seem. He wants to make it seem like we're not seeing any actual benefits of difficulty and that there's no equal opportunity. He states also that it's difficulty isn't often a cycle. That is his second contention. That not everyone has the opportunity. If you were to grow up in a less fortunate area, you don't have the opportunity to the same resources. But my response here is that they have the opportunity to find scholarships that are prone for the issues like there are. I explained to my opponent that my parents did not get an education. They didn't even graduate high school. But I attend the University of Texas at Austin on scholarship because I've worked towards that. I worked really hard in high school. I gained really good grades. I got my associate's degree in high school. And this was all prone because I worked towards it and I wanted to switch and flip the opportunity, something my parents did not have. Just because my parents did not get an education does not mean that that cycle continues. And my opponent just responds to my first contention that activism existed before. They were able to speak upon it. This is not true, Judge. The difficulty was not present yet. I am able to speak against something once I'm being targeted or being hit upon specifically. And then my second contention basically goes dropped. I provide you 5 examples about where difficulty leads to change or opportunity, and he basically just says these don't stand in today's debate round, which does not work. Thank you.
Judge,
Give me one moment, please.
okay.
Okay, I'm ready.
5 minutes on the clock? 5 minutes time? Ready? Okay. Thank you for such a wonderful speech. Thank you, Jack, for being here. So I'd like to start with addressing some of the things my dear opponent said. What he said was that the burden of class lies on the neck. I do agree. I do absolutely agree. That's why, going back to his case, you realize that I talked extensively concerning his case. Though he maybe was expecting that I would mention that this is what I'm talking about, but if you to sit down and you realize that most of the contentions you brought across, I have dealt with them completely. He mentioned the issue of he bringing in his second contention, he bringing 5 examples. That the second contention bringing 5 examples of difficulty of natural disasters, health challenges. Just I mentioned the issue of health challenges. I addressed it. If you look at it, I addressed it well. Also, the issue of losing a job, I addressed the issue of losing a job where I said, not everyone who loses a job will definitely find a job. That is what it is. It's a fact. Not everyone who is sacked from his job will get a new job. That's a fact. But when my opponent is saying that more true than false, that's what happens. That's not true. That is not true. If you take a significant amount of, let's say, 100 people who are sacked from their job, are you going to tell me all the 100 people or 99 people are definitely going to get jobs? Hell no. In reality, it doesn't work like that. My opponent also mentioned the fact that he gave a great example that he had a great example about his parents who probably were not educated, but his father was sacked and built a great business. That is true. And congrats to him and his family. But the question is everyone who is sacked from the job able to build a great business? The fact that you can have a skill that gives the opportunity to set up a business on your own doesn't mean that, let's say so for clarification's sake, I happen to work as a doctor back in my country before coming to the US. If I'm sacked from my job, I just can't go and start operating on people or start prescribing medications for people. How will I be arrested? I need to actually get the license, get the finance, start a whole hospital on its own. Where am I going to get that money from? Just because I'm a doctor? No. I don't get the opportunity just because I'm sacked, I just go and no. Things don't work that way in real life. The fact that you've been sacked from a job doesn't mean you're definitely going to get what? A new job, or have the opportunity to get a new job. Not everyone gets that. Maybe it was so for experience, which is wonderful, but for the majority of the population, more often than not, it doesn't work that way. this brings me to the issue of what activism, like you said. In regards to activism, what I was trying to say was that people began to speak of the situation. And if you look at the louder voice of activism, most of them were educated. They had the opportunity to be educated, not because they were being enslaved. For someone who's born into poverty and is given the opportunity, someone can say, hey, look, I see that you're struggling in life. I want to give you the opportunity to make your life better. I'm going to help you. The person becomes educated, becomes wealthy, and comes back to his opportunity, to his community. Would we say the suffering of the community gave that person the opportunity to bring back his wealth? Because he had a choice. He could say, I'm rich now, I ain't going back to the projects of the place anymore, but enjoy my life. He has the opportunity to do that. What about those who will not have the opportunity to make their life better? Would we say all those two people are equal? No. Difficult does not always have an opportunity underlying in it. At this moment, Judge, I would like to give my voters. My first voter is the burden of proof. My opponent has to prove that more often than not, that truly, more than often, amidst difficulty lies an opportunity, for which my opponent has failed to do on a massive scale. In fact, he tried to do this by bringing his own personal example of where he had to decide between the debate round and the interview. But if you listen closely, I was able to disprove the fact that the opportunity existed, not because of the debate round. Because if you're at a party or at the beach, you will sort of receive the email for that interview. You making that difficult decision to forfeit the debate round didn't cause the opportunity to appear. The opportunity would have appeared regardless of you being whether in a debate or not. My second voter is poverty is often a cycle. As I've stated here, people born in poverty have a hard chance of remaining in poverty. I'm not saying all, Judge. I'm not saying all. The people who were born in poverty but rose through the ranks and became successful. But for the majority of the people, what happens to them? They end up being poor. For the majority of the people, my opponents can't tell me that if you take a group of 100 people who are poor, 99 are going to be wealthy. That statistic doesn't exist. My third voter is the issue of not everyone gets an opportunity. That's reality. And I believe with this, the round should be voted in favor of the NEC. Thank you.
I have 3 minutes for the last affirmative speech. Judge, are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
And opponent?
Let me share this off.
Sounds good. 3 minutes starting now.
Yeah.
As this is the last time speaking today, I want to give a blanket of thank yous to my judge for taking notes and being very attentive during this round, and thank you so much to my opponent for providing such a great debate. Now with that, let's go into a little bit of what my opponent has been advocating or talking about within their case. My opponent wants to respond or talk about the first voter being burden of proof. That I basically have to show you more often than not that difficulty leads to opportunity. And I think I have definitely done that. So I provide you with 7 examples, 2 being of activism, and then 4 of them being the job leading to start a new opportunity, to look for a new job, or to start a new business, relationship breakup prompting to personal growth, natural disaster chanting to a need for rebuilding efforts, or combating a health challenge, prone to someone to prioritize their wellness. These are all examples that my opponent does not respond to. He just groups them up and basically says, that's not true. And this is my response to that. That's not true is not a qualifiable response in debate. My opponent just says, that's not true, that's not true. That is not a qualifiable response in a debate round. You either have to come up here and provide an alternative or show how they're not true. And my opponent just says, that's not true. And that is not a good response. That does not show any certainty in this, and just prompts the judge to believe that my side is true as I provided evidence and provided you with examples. Judge, I want to remind you that I don't have to prove that the opportunity is going to be successful. All I have to prove to you is that the opportunity is there. My opponent wants to make it seem like not everyone has the opportunity. Everyone certainly does have the opportunity. If you are in the state of mind where you are less financially stable and live in an area where where it's high crime rate, like my opponent states, you have the opportunity to get out of that. Disaster is not a cycle. You can break that cycle. You have the opportunity to break it. You have the opportunity to make a revolutionary change, to work for yourself and be better for your kids or your future generations to come. Like my parents, like any immigrant that comes to this country, they had the difficulty of leaving their home country to come to America for the opportunity of better paying jobs, for their kids to be born citizens, to have better education. These are all examples that I'm stating that are in our status quo. And my opponent just responds to them and says, that's not true. That is not a good response, and that shows no value in this debate. So my first voter is going to be dropped points. My opponent basically states, I did respond to this stuff. But as I said earlier, that's not true is not a response. It is basically a cop-out because there's no argumentation on side negation. And my second voter is going to be 7 examples versus nothing. My opponent does never provide you an alternative showing that difficulty leads to opportunity. He never shows you maybe that luck is something or something else. He basically just drops all the side affirmative. Thank you.
That's a good round.
Judge, are you okay with handshakes?
Yes,
Cool. Thank you
thank
so
you
much.
very much.
Thank you, Judge.
Good job.